Good morning, Travis.
Good morning.
How are you?
Doing good.
Did we stay up too late last night?
A little bit. I'd say so, but that's what you do at these conferences.
Yeah, I guess so. So maybe describe to us to start with how you got into flag football.
Yeah, I used to play in a lot of the top tournaments, and we actually first started by kind of going to the events that already existed and packaging them up.
Yep.
And kind of getting their approval to sell sponsorship, and we created a tour out of a bunch of kind of individualized events. And then over the next couple of years, this started back in like 2017, we started running our own events.
Yeah.
And now we pretty much run almost all of the events at the adult level, all the way from regionals up to our world championship.
Did you like get into football as a kid though, like in high school?
Yeah, I played tackle football.
Okay.
I was not an ideal size or weight for collegiate experience, which is why I play flag, and why a lot of people play flag. But I played all the way through high school and went to A&M, and was our intramural director in our outfit at the core of A&M. And we just played a lot of flag football, and I grew to love it. And then when I got out of school, started playing in some tournaments, and the rest is history.
Cool. And so you go from football in high school, and flag is how big at that point?
Not very big.
Right. It's pretty small still, right?
Back in the early 2000, like 98 to 2001, I think, in high school, the NFL was involved with flag. And they ran a pretty big tournament series called NFL Air It Out, where the pros actually played the winners of the Joes. And I played when I was in high school in that. And then when they kind of stopped backing the Air It Out series, it really kind of died out, except for one like major tournament, maybe two that were out there. And everybody was on their own. It was kind of the Wild West for our sport. So we kind of, it wasn't our goal, but what we ended up doing was basically kind of synchronizing the sport and standardizing the rules and kind of bringing everything underneath one umbrella.
Really? Okay, so flag gets created mostly because of concussion protocols?
That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
The high school girls is another big part of it. The female sport is growing and becoming a varsity sport. NFL is kind of pushing for that. There's some collegiate opportunities now as well at the NAIA level, and pretty soon D3, D2, and so that's helping. And then just the Olympic push that is going to happen in 2028. I think
that's 28. They're going to do that.
Yeah, here in LA. So
that's cool.
That was just announced.
That'll be a first time though, right?
Right, for the sport of football or flag football. So that'll be a good growth accelerator for the sport, we anticipate.
How many countries are going to be able to have teams in
that? I mean, all of them will be able to.
Yeah.
I anticipate there probably being 20, 30 teams. They've had world championships at the IFAF level for a while.
Yeah.
We've been fortunate enough to be a part of it in the past. And, there's some really good teams outside of the U.S. And the U.S. has a really strong case. They've got some of the top athletes and have played the sport a little bit more. But there's some really good countries out there, especially on the women's side. They're very, very competitive.
How many people are going from like tackle football? I was trying to figure out, what do you call football if there's flag football? So tackle football.
Tackle football.
Yeah.
Yeah, we view it as two completely different sports: tackle football, flag football.
Big time.
Yeah.
And how many people are coming out of like the tackle world into the flag side?
I mean, a lot of them, but it's at the youth level. A lot of them use it as a way to get involved with football at the skill position level without having to take hits, which is where they see a lot of the concussion, research showing they want to avoid at a young age. But then at the adult level, it's fun. I mean, you've got your recreational leagues, you've got men's, women's, co-ed, all kinds of different styles. So it started on military bases, and they still play it on military bases.
Oh, really?
And so we have a lot of military that play in these events as well.
And you run, how many events are you running a year now?
Next year, it'll be somewhere around 25.
Okay.
We kind of fluctuate 15 to 25, 30 events a year, depending on, kind of where we end up with our events and everything.
So you start this thing, you're running 25 events all over the U.S., I think, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much. And how do you keep up with that? Like, are you just a road warrior the whole time, or how does this work for you?
I used to be. I used to literally drive to all of our events. I live in Dallas, so I would drive to Vegas and Orlando and Ohio and everywhere that our events were for the most part. Fortunately, now we have a bigger staff, and they're kind of more spread across the country, and so we lean on them pretty heavily for a lot of our regional events. And I still travel to the national world championships and everything with a lot of gear, but a lot of times I can fly at this point because we have gear stashed in different locations.
So you're not driving the minivan across the country?
Not anymore, but I've been there, yeah, and it's a lot, I think we drove to Florida 3 times one year and Vegas the same year and put a lot of miles on there for sure.
Yeah. And so what has been sort of the most rewarding part of growing this company and building these events? And
I think it's the people that we work with, because I was a player and they're a lot of the players are our friends. A lot of the coaches and the captains are people that I play with and hang out with, and so it's a really tight-knit community, and so it's like a family reunion going to these major events. And it's a lot of fun. And so just getting to see people, see them grow, seeing some of the old heads that have been playing for 20 years and still compete, it's just a really fun experience. And then being able to see some of those people make the Olympic team will be really exciting. So
how many of your athletes do you think are going to get on those teams? Or that team, I guess I should say.
It really depends on what the NFL does, because historically all of them would have been guys that our top athletes play in those on the national team and have won IFAF World Championships a couple times since we've been in business. And I think a lot of those athletes, especially on the women's side, will still be there. I think the NFL, it'll be interesting to see what they do and how involved they want to get with their athletes, and if those athletes really want to make the national team and compete for the U.S. But they're excited either way. So
is there a skill difference you need between going from the NFL into flag, or is it the same skills, different things? What's going on there?
There are a lot of same skills, but there's a lot of differences in our sport, and it's a completely non-contact sport. You pull flags instead of hitting people or tackling, and even at the international level, it's like significantly no contact. Like even in the U.S. at our tournaments, they get away with being able to put your hands on someone, and that doesn't happen at the international level. So there will be, it's more about the nuances of the game and like how much training the NFL athletes would want to put in to learn it before they do more harm than good about with being on the team. But there are definitely some skill positions that'll translate really well. Wide receivers and some other ones that can probably step in right away and compete.
I would think those guys in the NFL would want to play in the Olympics, though, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and they do. Tyreek Hill and Gronkowski, there's been a couple that have already come out and been very vocal about wanting to play and compete, and I think they will. So it'll be exciting to see what kind of evolves there.
And what do you think that's going to do to your business? If you got 25 events, do you think being in the Olympics is going to scale it, double it or something, or what do you think is going to happen there?
It's hard to say. Internationally, I think the sport will explode. In the United States, it's already pretty strong at the youth level. I do think it's going to continue to elevate the sport. Especially at the female game, because there's already some collegiate opportunities that we're just starting to blossom and develop that I think will be expedited a little bit. But it brings credibility to the sport that was always seen as more recreational, because there wasn't an outlet past college.
There
wasn't even an outlet in college until a couple of years ago. So it's definitely growing for all the right reasons.
Yeah, that's cool. So if you're running 25 events, I know you're on our platform doing the scheduling, doing the registration. What's it like to schedule your Worlds event or your Nationals event? How many games is that? I've seen the schedule. That's why I can see the grid of it, how freaking big it is.
Yeah, and we kind of build mock schedules out a full year in advance on Excel sheets and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, God.
And then we obviously use EventConnect to kind of plug everything in. And our scheduling is very difficult, because we do live drafts for our schedules where we have to create kind of a skeleton schedule, and then we input the teams last minute, and EventConnect software handles it beautifully and makes it super easy for us. But
that's cool.
It's at this point it's kind of a science. We've gotten our mock schedules and we input those into EventConnect, and it handles it flawlessly.
Right on. I know you've been on the platform probably since the beginning, or almost since the beginning.
Yeah, I don't know exactly when you started, but I feel like it's been since
you were one of those first clients using our scheduling. And you've given us all this cool feedback. We've tried to build as fast as we can. I know you've gone through the heartache that we went through, this thing slowed down and it wasn't fast enough. We had to put more servers on it. What's the experience been to sort of digitize this thing and try to get this into more people's hands?
The more we can get people online and off of paper rosters and into the right hotels, and just easier user experience when they're registering and picking their divisions, and the better. So getting them all online. I know that EventConnect worked up a white labeled app for us, which we're excited to roll out. Looking forward to being able to kind of input scores, in person on site, and all kinds of stuff that makes it just really easy for us to, use the software and keep the players engaged. And ultimately that makes our job easier.
We were thinking about adding like crowd scoring or more people can add scoring to it, but your event's probably interesting because of all the adults. Like, how much fighting would that create if you let anybody go in there and put in scores?
You would probably have people putting in wrong scores intentionally and stuff. I mean, there's definitely, I know they do that at the high school level, and for the most part, people are putting in the right scores and everything, and I think they would. But I don't want that for our events. It would be chaos. People would be intentionally doing the wrong thing. And
you're running like adult events, right? So a lot of the stuff that we work with there's a lot of youth stuff, and I know there's a different thing with the parents, and they're fighting about umpires and refs and all that. What's it like running adult events? Is it a more calm event, or is it actually a little crazier?
People kind of get a bad rep, or the adults get a bad rep, but really parents of kids, I think they're way harder to deal with, and they're way more emotional. Like, the adults can get fiery, and it's a competition and all that, but parents, will defend their kids to the death. And, we've seen probably worse, kind of interactions and scuffles and having to break up stuff with parents than adults. But we've had our share with the adults too. I prefer the adults because I know how to manage them.
Right.
The parents, their motives are very strong and emotional.
Very different.
But I mean, in reality, none of them, our events are very tame and, for the most part, very well behaved. And, we have it kind of down to a science on, how to make sure we keep them separate and de-escalate. We even train our officials on de-escalating situations and trying to keep it from getting to a point where it becomes unmanageable.
That's probably smart to do that. How do you, when you run these large events, how do you actually get all the scores into to the central hub or something?
Well, previously we have our own scorecard system.
Okay.
All of our officials are given a stack of scorecards for their fields that our directors distribute, and then they would run them around to our directors would go around and collect them, after every game or every couple of games. The input of scores on the field directly is going to increase our productivity, and just the ease of, inputting scores significantly. So we're really looking forward to that feature.
Do you ever run into Wi-Fi issues or cell coverage issues in the areas that you go to?
Yeah, it can happen. Luckily with technology now, you can pretty much run up a hotspot with cell phone coverage, but there's definitely some times where cell phone coverage is spotty or Wi-Fi coverage is spotty. But typically, if you don't have good cell phone, the venues have kind of caught up and will provide Wi-Fi coverage. So I can't think of the last time that was a real issue for us.
Good. I've heard a lot of people talk about that, going, well, you got to have this because you can't get Wi-Fi. I'm like, how many fields are left where there's no Wi-Fi?
It's definitely possible. Especially if you're in more remote locations. But we're pretty well at very nice sports venues that are usually pretty modern and in bigger cities and things along those lines.
And so maybe talk about the size of the field, the same size as tackle football?
No, so we have a style. We really have three different sizes of fields. So we have a style called 8-on-8 contact. That's probably the closest to full tackle football, and 9-on-9 contact, two different styles technically that use a full size, 120 yards long by 50-yard football field.
Okay.
But then we have a 7-on-7 field, like high school and collegiate level, that's 100 yards by 40. And our most popular styles are 60 yards by 25, and we can put 4 of those on a regular, standard football or soccer field.
Oh, that's cool.
So that's most of our youth, our 4-man, 5-man. That's what the Olympic style will be on, like a 25-yard field and
Are they going to do 4-man?
They're going to do 5-man.
5-man. Okay.
5-man, non-contact, and we have some rules that are, there's a lot of ways to play. At our World Championships, we'll have, 50 different divisions, and so there's 4-man, 5-man, 6-man, 7-man, 8-man, and 9-man, and everything in between. Contact, co-ed, a little bit of everything. But 5-man non-contact will be the Olympic style, and it'll be fun to watch for sure.
Cool. And so I know you're a digital nerd like me, I believe.
Yeah, I am.
You got the beard, so that's good to go.
Yeah.
Do you guys get into filming and video and collecting video yet? And how are you managing that?
We do. We probably don't do the best job at that. We actually typically kind of crowdsource that media.
Right.
A lot of our photographers and videographers will kind of go into our community groups, and they'll actually hire or be hired by the teams to come shoot for them. And then we just work out a deal where we give them media passes and they share all their media with us. And then we'll hire for our bigger events our own crew.
Gotcha.
But it's, and we'll put together some highlight videos and, photo montages and things along those lines as well.
So you're crowdsourcing a lot of that video. Have you ever played or seen these AI cameras, Pixelot and Huddle and these guys? Have you ever played with any of those to see if it works for your sport?
We've talked about it. We haven't used them yet. Tampa Sports Complex that we're at for our World Championships has them, but because we put multiple fields on one soccer field, I don't think the technology is caught up with because they track the ball,
right?
And we'll have multiple balls on one field. So we haven't been able to utilize that yet, unfortunately.
Right.
But it's hopefully the technology will catch up. And
so AI is not that smart yet.
Not yet that I know of. I'm sure it is. As of right now, I don't know of a solution for that.
Yeah, and a lot of people are playing with it. The thing I've heard is how do you, collecting it's pretty easy, but how do you index it and flag it so that you can go in there and share it into social and all these other things? Slicing it up, it's got to be such a huge job after the fact.
It is, and I used to do it myself, and that's why we kind of crowdsource it now, because it is a lot. I mean, all the video files and photos, and trying to remember and tag all the highlights and everything. So we, through the crowdsourcing, we kind of lean on them and let them know what we're looking for, and they generally send us just the highlights, not necessarily every single clip, which makes it easier so that we can kind of repost it. And then we tag them and we kind of give them credit and we help them promote that, hey, they're going to be at these events if you want them to do it. And they make their money through the teams, and it works out great.
That's cool. How big do you think you're going to run this company up? How big do you want to run it up? Say that.
I hope the sport continues to grow to a point where we can really scale internationally. Because right now we're mostly just here in the United States.
Right.
We do have some events that we're pretty much at max capacity, but we'll continue to add more events in some, prominent locations. And then our goal is to expand, to Mexico and Canada. And
cool.
We'll probably have a tournament in the Caribbean by next summer.
I have to go to that one.
Even overseas. You should. It's beautiful. And I think Dominican is what we're targeting, and it's a gorgeous location, right, with all the beaches and everything. But yeah, with some things along those lines, that'll help us scale and grow internationally, and then draw those teams into our World Championships.
So a kid wants to get into flag. If you're a parent like me, I didn't even let my kid play tackle football because I didn't want to break his back or his knees. How do you get, obviously the school doesn't have flag football, or the high school doesn't have that yet, right? How do you get involved into this? What is the best way to find you?
So in the United States, I know that we have, typically there's local leagues, and that's usually the first entrance, and it depends on where you are in the country here. Sometimes tackle is really dominant and they start really early, and sometimes the trend is moving more towards not really playing tackle until maybe middle school, or because there's a lot of research that's showing just repetitive hitting of your helmets, even at a young age, can start to lead to
that good for
concussions. There's a lot of science that goes into it, and people, and there's a lot of NFL, former players that are very, pro flag football. Let's wait before we start hitting in pads, and so that's kind of helped propel the sport. And typically there's a local league, whether it's through your city or an independent NFL flag league or Under Armour Under the Lights league or something like that in your area that you can jump in and be a part of and learn the sport. And then we kind of are at the tournament level. So typically you'd start at a local league, and if your team's good, maybe you earn a bid and you can come compete nationally.
And you guys are paying teams, or are teams winning money when they play in your events?
Yeah, so that's kind of been the draw on the adult side, is cash prizes. And then, coming to a quality event and cool locations and, sponsors and all that. But cash prizes, people like to be able to earn their money back for their trip. So that's kind of the number one at the top level. So at our nationals and worlds, we have some pretty good cash prizes that they want to come compete for, and then we have other divisions that are just for fun, and really most of our divisions are just for fun.
Just the elite guys are going for the cash.
Exactly.
Anything you want to share about where you want to see the sport grow, and who can help you grow this thing?
I think for flag football right now with the Olympic announcement, it's going to take off, and it's going to take off starting at the local level, but it's also we're going to see growth.
They're putting the Olympics, man.
And that's something that will just kind of be a natural progression point. But as far as growing the sport internationally, it's just going to come down to the right partners, and we've got some good sponsors that are starting to jump on board, especially after the Olympic announcement again.
Yeah.
And I think that the more we can get out there, the more that we can kind of legitimize the sport and give back to the community with better prizes, and whoever wants to jump on board and make them just that much cooler of an event, the more we'll see it grow and continue to grow everywhere. And then just local partners who want to start the sport where they are. And, we've heard from state associations and all kinds of groups that are now starting to become more interested. Hey, we've got to get flag football into our community.
Yeah.
And that's great to hear.
So you see the organic groundswell coming up now. There's going to be lots of ways to get into this.
Yeah. I mean, people now are just more familiar with it. There's just a lack of awareness sometimes on, what our sport does or how it's viewed. So that's definitely coming to the forefront.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's a good way to end it here on this part.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I know you're growing like crazy.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you for using the platform, and it's been great to talk you through this.
Yeah, and I will say that we love the platform.
Awesome.
I mean, everything that we've grown with it since we were in our infancy, and it's been an integral part of our success. So thank you guys.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Good shot.
All right.